because there just isn't staff. And with the ratios that are needed, you can't jeopardize somebody's health and safety by putting them into a program with inadequate staff. So we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. How do we not advocate to take people off? And yet how do you advocate when there isn't the capacity within the system to help them?
Are you looking at direct care services, or are you looking at administrative care services?
We're looking at direct care.
And what is the current pay rate scale?
Starting wage is $8.
Yeah.
And what are you hoping it will go to?
We'd like to see it at least at 10.
The plan from the providers is $5 million in the next 3 years. How that's going to fall out is anybody's guess, but that's their request. But we'll just have to see.
Yes. So again, this is an opportunity to contact your legislators and tell them your experience. You know, that we would like to see direct care staff be a profession and really be something that people want to do and not just kind of a transitional job until they can find something else.
Yeah, I agree with that because I did that when I was back at home. I live in Washington State, and you get burned out because you're not getting paid enough, and so you just talk yourself into getting burned out because you're like, I'm only getting paid, X amount an hour, and it's not worth it. But it is worth it because you are helping people. But you know what I mean? You get burned out because you're not getting paid for what you should.
Again, you're talking about expertise.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who have the expertise are they're administrating. They're not the ones that are doing the actual work. And so I think that there is a real disconnect with the people that actually have the skills and the people who are having to do the work.
I agree with you.
And so, I mean, that would be an ideal situation. But,
It's kind of like what Sherry was saying. My experience was that I worked for a company, and they were very good. They had a good reputation. They charged astronomical amounts, billed it to insurance and what have you. And the people on the upper end were getting paid well enough. And in Washington State, which where I'm from too, they have, like Seattle has a $15 minimum wage. It's more expensive to live there. But we were getting paid, $10 an hour. But, once a month we would get some training. But, I was taking care of a man who was 3 times my size, and was very unstable on his feet, and he wasn't always a pleasant person to be around. Yeah. And it's just you're the person who's really in there, hands-on, doing what's important. You're caring for the individual, and you're meeting the need. And these other people are, it's like you'll have a nurse that will come in and make sure the meds are all right, or readjust meds, and she gets paid, a lot of money. It's just, it gets frustrating.
Well, at least home health agencies can bill insurance. Our DSP providers are right under contract with the state, and they have no recourse. They don't have any place to go. So it makes it really a difficult situation.
And, when I talked about the budget process before, they really are looking at efficiencies. So, again, we're kind of in this difficult place because, as Chris just said, the Division of Services for People with Disabilities contracts with private companies to provide service. Well, these are private companies, so the way they operate their business is proprietary, and they're in competition with one another. And yet the state really wants to know how the administrative fees are handled and salaries and things. And I'm sure that they can have some transparency in their contracting, but there's a little bit of tension there with providers providing as much information to the legislature as the legislature thinks it wants, and yet still being a private business. So we'll see where that goes, because again, the idea is to take current resources and make them as efficient as possible, and try to serve more people. And there comes a point when we all know you have to add more money to a system in order to be able to have quality.
But that's not the only issue. Money is a piece of it, and that's the other thing that they're looking at. What can we do with our service delivery system with the dollars, plus making some changes to make it more workable. So it's going to be an interesting year. And then I work with vocational rehabilitation and independent living, deaf and hard of hearing services, and blind and visually impaired are all under the Office of Rehabilitation. And so we're looking at money for VR this year. We're also looking at independent living centers have to serve whoever walks in the door. And they're seeing a whole lot of folks with mental health issues, veterans, a lot of different things, because there's no place else for people to turn sometimes for those services. And so we're looking at the increase in their budgets. And then if you're all familiar, and you have to do some time with the assistive technology lab and how expensive that is. And so independent living does have a pot of money that they also, if, as a last resort, so people can acquire assistive technology. And so that's another thing that we're looking at for money for this year. So we're going to be busy.
And the largest provider of mental health services are the jails and prisons. Jessica, did you have a question?
I just wasn't familiar with this waiting list that you were talking about, so I was
Oh.
trying to figure out exactly
Okay,
what
so-
that's linked to,
George,
or,
explain that to you.
yeah, how that,
So, within the Medicaid program, the state is allowed to do a waiver of some of the regulations for Medicaid. So we have home and community-based waivers that serve people in the community. And with a waiver, you're allowed to disregard some of the Medicaid rules. So you can define the population that you want to serve, you can define the services that you want to provide, and you can limit it to the number, you can limit the number of people who get services based on the allocation that is made to the program. So for people with intellectual disabilities and traumatic brain injury and some physical disabilities, we have this thing called the waiting list. And right now, they're serving about 4,900 people, and there are about 1,900 people who are on the waiting list to get into services. So it really depends on what sort of allocation the legislature makes as to how many people can be taken off. And as Chris has said, we have a law that requires us to take the most critical first. Well, by the time somebody is most critical, their needs are pretty large. And so you're taking off fewer people from the top each year because the expense of bringing them into service is so large, where if you were to address some of their needs earlier on, you could bring more people into service.
And we have a couple of different ways that they can do that. They can go with a provider, a business person, maybe both residential and employment and all those kinds of services. Or they can, we have a self-administered model that families receive they provide their own services, they hire their own people, and that's becoming a real huge issue too, as far, because they're having as hard a time finding people as the professional providers are, so.
And they really are limited as to what they can pay, because they, even as a self-administered family, you're signing a contract with the state and have to go by the guidelines that the state has set in terms of the wages you can pay.
And families, I know there are some who are, but you should not be supplanting those wages with private money. If they're receiving Medicaid, that's what the provider is supposed to take. So that makes it difficult. That's one of the things that we're hoping to talk about often to change. If indeed a family can afford to help, some kind of a sliding fee scale, so that they can have a little, as our legislature likes to call it, skin in the game, so that they can also be helping supply some of those services, which now as it gets very big regs.
So is it, I have military insurance, which I'm very grateful for, but what I have found, because it is still government health insurance, is that there are providers that, especially if you need a specialist, and they will accept only so many Medicaid patients. And the reason is because they pay the least. And so the providers that you have access to, if someone has an opening and is accepting Medicaid providers, it's, depending on what it is, it's either because they're just a good person and they want